but I didn't
Hello
this
and
time.
I'll start.
Perfect intro.
Hello and welcome back to Radio Free Urbanism, your favorite podcast about urbanism
That
stuff.
gets interrupted.
Yeah, that gets interrupted. I'm just gonna say up front, we have some news that we really like. This is important. We need to share with everyone. This is the last episode of Radio Free Urbanism in the single digits. Next week is our 10th episode. So celebrate with us by buying yourself a stuffed animal, squeezing it tight, and saying, I love trains. Thank you, Ethan, for demonstrating to the audience what that looks like. And
it's like the flight attendants, you know. You got the buckle, fasten the seatbelt, oxygen mask.
yeah, you got to demonstrate, right? But of course, I'm Alex Williams. I'm one of your hosts. And of course, we've got Ethan Myers
Hello, everybody.
and Nick Laporte.
Hello and welcome back.
So, Nick, to start us off, would you like to fill us in on your bicycle tow truck experience?
Yes, I need to update on this. So last week at the beginning of the episode, I talked about getting a flat tire on my mountain bike. In fact, I'm going to share it here on the screen so those you can see this bike that I've had for quite a long time. In fact, I think I bought this bike about a decade ago. It's a Trek mountain bike that I love dearly, and I got a flat tire on the front. And I had to, take it home on the bus, my bus tow truck, which was very, very handy. I was very happy to have, but I had a revelation of sorts in that I was like, why am I still riding this mountain bike? I've lived in Vancouver for almost 7 years now, and this mountain bike rarely sees trails. It's been on the mountains once here in North Vancouver, one time. It's like, why don't I have a different bike? I can buy a different bike. So that's what I did. I bought a new bike, and I'm very excited to share with everybody that I got a new bike. And it's just like, it's already changed my life. Like I've been
Really?
so like, have you ever ridden a mountain bike and then immediately gone to a road bike? I didn't get a road bike, but like, have you felt the difference riding on a flat surface? It's incredible how much speed you can get, how quickly you can get up to speed on a road bike. There's a reason why, excuse me. Yeah, there's a reason why they're made that way, right? They just work better on the road. Anyway, I got a new bike, and here it is.
Oh, I love it.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. I didn't get this. This is an Oma Feats.
You should
And
have.
this is what people thought I would
No
get,
Dutch
of course.
style.
Yeah, getting
Made
all
a
into
huge
this urbanist
mistake
stuff.
not getting that, Nick.
I imported from the Netherlands.
People would look at you in North America and be like, "Nice beach bike."
Yeah. No, this is a great bike. That's pretty cool. That's not it. No, I got this bike. It's a Da Vinci Milano. It's just like a city type of bike. It's got a relatively normal geometry, not too dissimilar from my mountain bike already, but it's got a solid front fork, much thinner tires, much lighter, and very important for Vancouver is it has actual fenders, so the rain isn't spraying up in my face. So that's awesome. I just took this picture about an hour ago on my way home from work today, which is like the first time in January I've ever ridden my bike to work, which was actually totally fine. It was awesome. Because if you had maybe seen my recent video, I talked about why I have an electric scooter. I talked about not wanting to ride my bike in the crappy weather, but I did it today, and it was fine. It was actually fun, especially coming home. It was great, which was awesome. And this, I was taking this picture, and like the nicest people were just walking by. This is on the Arbutus Greenway, just like saying congratulations. And I was like, they didn't even know what it was about, but they were just so nice. And this lady came and helped me take a photo of me. It was not the greatest photo, but she did, of me holding up my bike.
She did her best.
She tried, and I appreciated that.
She's a big fan of roads, I see.
Yeah.
Big fan of that asphalt.
Yeah. And the cool thing is that I had no idea what the bike market was like. I knew that during COVID, it got really bad. Things got really expensive all across the board. When you wanted to buy a bike, it was absolutely insane. But I literally went and looked for a bike, and the same day I purchased the bike because the price was so reasonable. This bike was under $1,000. It's all aluminum, hydraulic disc brakes, all the bells and whistles you'd want from like a solid bike that's going to last a long time. So I was very, very happy with that.
Yeah.
And if you're looking at getting a bike, take a look. Even e-bikes. I think I'm not going to say name companies here. Unless you pay us, you know who you are. You start advertising, we'll start name dropping you. But certain e-bike companies have recently reduced their prices as well. So if that's something you're into, go check it out.
Yeah, that's sweet.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, this is how accessible cycling is because when you bought this bike, okay, so my car that I had for 8 years, I paid $500 for it. That was the initial price, right? Super cheap. I bought it from a family friend. Great car, lasted me a long time. But I had to pay every month for the insurance and everything else, right? So even though the initial cost of it was really low, you pay up eventually.
Oh
Whereas
yeah.
Oh,
with
100%.
bikes, you buy the bicycle, and I mean, how much to fix a flat tire, right? Like you go get a new tube, $10 maybe, right? It's biking is so accessible,
Even if
so
you
that's
want to
great
get
to
it
hear that the
repaired at a
prices are
shop,
dropping too. Yeah,
it's not even expensive.
yeah.
Absolutely. It's not too bad. I've never actually, I think I've had a bike repaired in a shop one time, and it was to replace a spoke
Hmm.
on that mountain
Mm.
bike. And I don't think it was more than $50 to do that. And that's the thing too, is like it's much easier to do your own repairs with a bicycle. It's like so easy. Like I understand not everybody's interested in doing that, or they don't know how, or they're not inclined to learn how to do it, which is totally
Hmm.
fine. It's great that it's cheap, but it is actually super easy to do something as simple as changing the tube on a tire. Like it's very easy, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long does that take too? It's like 5-10 minutes to change
Oh
your
yeah,
tube. You're done.
Hmm.
yeah. If you know what you're doing,
Yeah.
fast,
Yeah.
super fast. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's been interesting doing all this stuff and really focusing in on it and finding that as much as I love electric scooters and e-bikes and everything, I'm more and more seeing how just fucking amazing bicycles are. Like they're
Yeah.
almost perfect, and they haven't changed that much in 100 years. Like they haven't changed that much. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
is fantastic.
They're
Simple machine.
they're
Yeah.
wonderful. I mean, most efficient way to get pretty much anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for updating us, Nick. Congratulations on the new bike. I'm very happy for you.
Can't wait to see
And
more bike adventures from Nick.
yeah,
Lots
yeah.
to come.
And Ethan has a lot to say. He went on quite the excursion this past weekend. You want to fill us in?
So, folks, I took a little trip for the day down to Phoenix, Arizona, for the opening of the Northwest Extension, part of the Valley Metro Light Rail down in Phoenix. It's not a huge one, but it did create like an actual like bus hub for the end of the line. It's a very pretty modern station. It's the first elevated one in the entire system. And it was super exciting. They had all this fanfare out there. Local politicians were there. A lot of people from the community, food trucks at the station, things for the kids. It was very, very exciting. Lots of media there. And it's just what you got to do with, public transit openings and, infrastructure projects. You really got to kind of make it like a good thing for the community and just bring them out there to see like, hey, this is what your tax dollars funded, and now this is something that you can use on the regular. But not only did I go for that because that was super exciting, and these stations are actually very modern and pretty impressive for light rail stations too. Even just the standard run of the mill station is pretty nice there. But I also got to see the lovely neighborhood Culdesac up close and in person. The one that everybody references online being that car free neighborhood. You may have seen it, but I was there in person, and yeah, it kind of does live up to the hype in a lot of ways. It's definitely different than what I personally expected, but it was still a very, very nice community. Maybe a little, in some ways, it might have been a little too, empty at the moment and maybe a little corporate feeling, but it's still pretty new and it's not even close to being done. But it was
Mhm.
still super exciting to get to see these two big urbanist projects that are happening out in an area that's pretty well known for its sprawl. I mean, like, you hear Phoenix, Arizona, and you just immediately default to, oh, yeah, car.
Hmm.
Mega stroads,
Mega
highways.
Strodes.
Yeah,
I mean, that's like the home of the Strode down there, but like
definitely.
they're doing like I was surprised to find out how much they're actually doing to like kind of distance themselves from that in some ways.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually there was a video that came out a few days ago of it was talking about the extension, and this YouTuber, I'm trying to find it, but I can't find it. If I can find it, I'll put it in the show notes later. But they went to the extension. And the whole time I was looking for Ethan in the video, seeing if I could see you there too. But it was packed. There were tons of people excited to ride the train. Just excited about this extension. And so I think even in those places where we might think that people aren't as excited about it, people are excited about it. People love trains. People love new, big, clean, and cool transit projects.
You'd be very surprised how much the people of Phoenix actually really appreciate their system. It only opened up originally in 2008, but like you can talk to people who were there for the opening who aren't even that old, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I was waiting like 30 minutes to an hour just to get on the light rail when it first opened."
Yeah.
So there's definitely hype behind the system, and it's been one of those systems that's been constantly expanding over and over the years. It hasn't been like giant projects, but it's mostly been like 2 miles here, 2 miles here, a mile and a half here, 3 miles here. But it's also about to get its second line in the system, and it's actually super exciting to see. And in a lot of ways, just kind of like it somewhat kind of relates to like Calgary's light rail in kind of a sense, because it runs through a lot of the major job centers in Phoenix. And if you were to kind of do like reorganize Valley Metro's bus network to be more oriented on feeder buses to the light rail, you could probably see somewhere close to the ridership that Calgary gets for its light rail system.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't like to think about it, but buses are super important for rail.
Huge.
Absolutely.
Hugely important.
They make the connections for sure. But I have a very important question. Did you get a plushie?
I did not from Valley Metro, but I got a tote bag and I got a poster.
Nice. Okay. Poster makes
That
up
counts
for
for
it.
something.
And also I got a ticket. One of their older ones. They're planning on phasing these bad boys out, but yeah.
So it's going to be vintage very soon.
Yeah.
Collector's
I mean,
item.
it already looks very vintage, but you know.
Yeah.
It looks like it's from the 90s, and yet it's from like 2008.
Yeah. I want to go back to something you said about this, about how they've done small extensions, how they just kind of do a couple stations at a time. And I think that's how we should build transit.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Like we shouldn't be just saying like, you know what, we're gonna slap down a new rail here. Obviously, right now in the situation where we're at, where we're behind on where our rail should be, that's what we have to do, right? But in an ideal situation, we say, hey, you know what, we are expanding this development, so we're just gonna build one more station. Just make it part of the infrastructure, right? The same way that when you're going from one neighborhood to the next, you're not saying, wow, look at these brand new fancy roads we're on, right? It's not like a brand new spanking road. It's just the road that came after that road, right? This road's 1 year newer than the last road I was just on. Yeah. And that's how it should be with transit as well. We should just be constantly expanding it to the new areas where there's growth.
And I'm hoping Phoenix can kind of keep up on that, because they do have a lot of future plans too that are in the works at the moment. They have a line that's supposed to open up at the end of the year this year. It's called the South Central Extension. That's going to be a 5 mile long line. And then they also have the I-10 West line that they're looking at opening. I think that's going to be in like 2030 though. But it's still super exciting to see this. And then they also have some BRT and rapid bus projects. But I mean, all they have to do at this point is really kind of address the zoning in the area in a lot of places. But if there's one real shining star in the Phoenix metro area, it's Tempe. Tempe, Arizona is a surprisingly very modern urbanist city in the middle of Arizona. It's not perfect by any standards, but it's definitely an area that I could see someone existing car-free in, if not car-light. And that's where Culdesac is. And yeah, it has the streetcar, it has light rail, it has the local buses. And it's just generally, it's an exciting, at least Tempe is a very exciting city. Phoenix and just the valley in general, not the most urbanist place in the world, but they are working on it. And I think that's something people need to understand, is that you're not going to fix everything immediately. But if you have that momentum going, then you're going to improve your community. And I mean, this has all been done since 2008. Before that, Phoenix didn't have any rail transit.
Yeah. You know, I recently watched some videos from John of Active Towns, and he was in Culdesac recently as well. And I didn't watch this one particular video. I think he just released recently, but he had biked from Phoenix Airport, just like out from the airport. I got to look more into this, but he actually has a playlist of airports that he's biked to or from, which I think is fantastic. But even more importantly, I think is having good transit from airports. Like there's so many airports in North America where you basically have to drive. You have to take a taxi. You have to drive and park there and spend insane amounts of money. Like,
Yeah.
so
Oh, 100%.
it's crazy. Like here's an example. So there's an airport outside of Abbotsford. So Abbotsford Airport, not far from Vancouver. It's about an hour drive. And it's an airport that a lot of people will go to, one that I used to go to fly budget airlines because, oh yeah, look at this cheap flights, $200 to Ontario. Like that's great. But then at the end of it, you get home after your trip, you get back and you're like, how much money did I spend? You're like, I spent 2 hours in the car, at least driving. That's gas and time. Then I had to park my car, which was probably for a week. I don't know, $80 to $100. Like that stuff all adds up, and I just can't do it anymore. I'm like, I'm going to get on the SkyTrain. It's going to take me right to the terminal in the Vancouver airport, right to the terminal. And super easy. I don't have to think about it. I have to come back to a bill when I get back to Vancouver. It's fantastic, but it just sucks how many airports don't have that accessibility. It's a bummer.
It's insane. Yeah. Phoenix is actually one of them that does have accessibility to the airport by transit.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Shocking for a lot of people. They're like, wait a minute, I can get around Phoenix without a car?
Yeah.
Not to a crazy amount of places, but you can get a decent amount of places without a car there.
I will say, so I have taken transit to and from both the Calgary airport and the Vancouver airport and other airports that I've flown to. But the Calgary airport, it has a bus. And originally they had it was a more expensive ticket if you were taking the bus from the airport.
Yeah.
They recently did away with that. Fortunately, it's just another bus ticket. But then still the Vancouver airport, like the wayfinding to the SkyTrain is super convenient and easy. And then once you get there, I was there. I didn't plan to be staying in Vancouver. I was originally supposed to have a layover, but then I wound up having to stay overnight. And I was like, well, I'm in Vancouver. I may as well go explore. And I just went and hopped on the train. And this was my first time in Vancouver. I'd never been before. I just hopped on the train and went to downtown, wandered around, checked out Stanley Park. And then I went back to the train and went back to the airport. Super convenient. Yeah. And it was easy. And so having those great connections and having rail connections, like there's no reason. Any major airport should have a rail connection. There's enough people moving through there. Yeah, there's enough people moving through there that it's like you're gonna fill the seats.
Yeah,
absolutely. There are some very interesting rail connections to airports in the U.S. too, where it's like it's kind of, but not really. Like the Northeast is really common for this. There's 2 cities that come to mind: New York City, for LaGuardia. You take the rail to a bus station that's kind of close, and then you go in, and then the air trains to JFK and Newark, which are they're ridiculously expensive. They're like $6 one way just to get to the airport from the subway.
Yeah,
you can blame the Port Authority for that one, but it's just crazy. And then there's also Boston too, where it's like you can take the Blue Line right up to the airport, and then you got to transfer to a bus.
Yeah.
Or you can take the Silver Line.
I think it's like a racket. It's got to do with the parking. Like they're making a ton of money on parking. They have to be.
Yeah.
It's got to be something there that's keeping. They're like, you know what? Let's just keep it this way. We're making money hand over fist on parking.
Yeah. As we wrap up this conversation about Culdesac and transit and Phoenix and stuff, I've got 2 questions for you, Ethan. First, overrated or underrated? What would you say?
With what? Culdesac?
For Culdesac and for the Phoenix light rail.
So I'll say the Phoenix light rail is probably I'd say it's a little underrated. I wouldn't say it's I wouldn't say that it's like this great system, but it's definitely going to be pretty damn good in like the next few years. It's decently fast. Like it's not like the fastest system in the world, but it's going to get you places, and it was $5 for all-day rides. So fairly affordable too. Culdesac, I'm gonna say properly rated.
Yeah.
There were some things that surprised me, and then other things that didn't. One thing that really just got to me is just how early on they are in this project. Like, I was informed that they're just finishing up phase one,
Right.
and they have plans to like nearly like build 3 times the amount of apartments that they do now. So like
Yeah.
it kind of, yeah, my biggest critique of it is that at the moment it kind of feels empty, but like you can
Right.
see everything there, and you're like, and I was just like, okay, I understand what they're going with here. It really, yeah, they're really going for the walkability aspect. They're they're really trying to build the like the urbanist hub of Arizona there, and you can just kind of
Yeah.
see the car free living aspect there and how they're trying to encourage that more. Um, there is the grocery store on site though, very important. I think that just opened up actually. The problem is that it's a little on the pricier side, but you know,
Mm.
it's the convenience of having it there.
Mm-hmm.
But you know,
Yeah.
I'll say cul-de-sac is kind of properly rated.
All right.
I think
Yeah.
we still will have more time to see on it though, just to see how it
Yeah.
develops in the future.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to get my invitation to go to Culdesac. I'll be eagerly waiting by the mailbox. But
They're good people.
while I wait for that, we're going to move on to a video Nick has to share with us.
Oh yes. Okay. This is something that it actually happened a while ago. So this is from about a year ago, and I know Ethan had said he had seen it quite a while ago, and it's not wanting to load on my end here. So if somebody else wants to try to load that
Yeah,
up,
let's.
is yeah. So this bus company decided to put their bus drivers in situations so that they could have empathy for other people on the road. It's very interesting. So what they did was they had the bus drivers in a huge parking lot on a stationary bike, kind of like a Peloton, while somebody else in a bus close past them. And you can see the reactions from these guys put in very uncomfortable situations. And this is a situation if you're a cyclist who goes out on the road very frequently when there's not good separated infrastructure, you would have experienced this at one point or another, or very often if you're in a place that has poor cycling infrastructure, or, you know, bike gutters, which is a place where this often happens. So yeah, this is something I wanted to bring up because I think it's an opportunity for people to have, or to at least gain some empathy. They need to understand what other people on the road are feeling. And I think this is really coming down to what you see in the Netherlands, where even the drivers are cyclists. So everybody understands other people's positions on the road. It's not this
Mhm.
us versus them. We're all in this together. We're all just trying to get to where we're going safely every day.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
I really wish other people would have that understanding.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's why this is this is something you have to educate people on, right? Like you have to do things like this, like what we showed, in order for people to appreciate what's going on with other people. And also like really like people need to understand we're all pedestrians first, right? Like what no matter how much you drive, no matter how much you feel like that's your primary mode of transportation, your primary mode of transportation is your feet. That's it. And so when we see sidewalks, alongside roads, right now in Calgary we've got big Chinook rolling through, so it's nice and warm, and all the snow that we've gotten over the past few months is melting, and it's creating these big puddles, right? And so we see cars splashing up onto the sidewalks. And most drivers, I will say most
Mm-hmm.
drivers
Mm-hmm.
are pretty considerate about this. I
Mm-hmm.
was out walking yesterday, and most drivers made sure they took the wide way around. If they couldn't move over to a completely different lane, they were at least moved all the way over to the left side of the lane, right? So that they were avoiding these puddles. But you know, it only takes one driver to splash you to ruin your
And then
day,
you're just
right?
soaked. Yeah.
It's
No.
like, and that's the bottom line, is that it's not that most people need to be considerate, it's that everybody needs to be considerate. Everybody needs to
Yeah.
realize like, oh hey, we're all trying to get around, no matter what mode of transportation you're using, bus, bike, car, your own feet. We're all just trying to get where we're going.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's like you often say, like it could just be a few people, but most people are just considerate people, even drivers. Like we can complain about drivers on here, and I can have rants about drivers and idling and everything. But like, yeah, most people I encounter on the road, no matter what mode they're on, it's pleasant. Like every time a driver gives me the right of way when I deserve it and I should have it, I wave and I mouth thank you. Like just trying to be friendly, because these people are my neighbors. Doesn't matter that they're in a car or not. Like we're all just neighbors.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Of course,
Ethan,
you also have to correct them when they do wrong.
How do we do that? That's the hard part, though. How do we address that?
It's simple. You carry the cross rock. So at least in the desert, it's very simple. Everything out here, they like to use rocks, for like instead of grass. So I just simply, when I'm at an intersection, for my safety, I will pick one up, and when I'm crossing an 8-lane road in Vegas, I'll just hold it in my hand.
Just wave it around.
Crossing, just letting people know that I have a rock and that I could mildly inconvenience their day if they try to, I don't know, mildly inconvenience my life.
That's one way to put it.
Have you guys seen the show Afterlife on Netflix?
I've heard of it.
It's a good show. Ricky Gervais. I think it's like 2 seasons. But there is a scene where he's crossing the street and he's holding a brick. Or no, he wasn't holding a brick in his hand. He was holding like a flower pot. He was bringing like a potted plant to somebody or something. And then somebody, like a driver, drove right in front of him. And so then he takes it and he threw it in their back window. And this plant, like he was going to use this plant for something, but he just threw it in their back window. And then just walked on. He just left, and then the next time he was crossing the street, he was holding a brick, and he noted and then the same driver just like stopped and let him cross. We're not saying don't be violent.
Don't be violent. I hold the rock for good luck.
Yeah. It's for good luck.
Totally.
But do be considerate. And so I think what this transportation company did. Fantastic way to educate people on what it feels like to be on the receiving end.
Yeah. And I think I wanted to make a note there about how the best way to react in those situations, like if you're close past or whatever, some kind of situation that you feel like you've nearly been harmed, or you actually nearly been harmed, or you've been scared. And this is something I've struggled with, is not having a little freak out, like a minor freak out, yelling at a driver. I've done many times, like been close past or whatever, almost hit and yelled. It's just, it doesn't get anywhere. And it lets the reaction, the hormones come flowing out of you, and it's hard to control that, but that is definitely not the best way to go about it.
There's a great video. I'll need to pull it up on the next show, but it's this one guy who's crossing the street in Philly, and this car is like pulled up into the actual intersection, and he gives, a little tap on the hood to the driver, and the driver's like, "What's your problem?" Like all angry, and he's just like, "I'm just telling you, you need to not pull up into the crosswalk."
Yeah.
He's like being fully calm, and he's like, "I know that no one's ever told you this in your life, but you don't need to be entitled and pull up into the crosswalk." I watched this a little while ago. I remember saying that. Yeah, absolutely. It's just be calm. And if someone's scared of you, they close past you. If you have a chance to say, "Hey man, you scared the crap out of me. Could you just mind not just like giving us more space?" I'd really appreciate it. Just like being super, because as soon as you works better.
Yeah. As soon as you get angry and start yelling, it's just going to be defensive, and that can lead to much worse things, like maybe actually being run over if they are having a particularly bad day. Cause that happens. Like we had a story on here a few weeks ago, and you talked about a road rage incident, right? So those things can happen, especially if you live somewhere where guns are very, very common. That's another reason.
I wonder who lives in one of those places.
Yelling at people. Yeah.
No, I think that's great. And I think we're going to continue this conversation a little bit later on, especially the education aspect of it. We've got some listener mail that we'll get to in a bit here. But for now, Ethan's got another story to share with us, which is, it's upsetting.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's like this will be like a hybrid story / Woogmug, you guys know. But speaking of buses, like our bus drivers we were talking about, have you guys heard of a little city called Indianapolis, Indiana?
Oh, yes. I've heard it's got some good cycling infrastructure.
Interesting. I actually didn't know that. But Indianapolis has actually been doing a really cool thing where they've been building out bus rapid transit. And it's not like the crappy bus rapid transit. It's not been affected by BRT creep in any way. but it's actually like good. It's got signal priority. It's got really nice stations, dedicated bus lanes most of the way. It's a solid bus rapid transit route with good frequency and good station stop or station spacing. Like it's actually like a legitimately good system. Now, the local GOP in Indiana is not exactly the biggest fan of transit systems. In fact, in 2014, they banned light rail in Indianapolis. And now we have a wonderful new bill proposed by the Indiana Senate. Basically, it's Senate Bill 52, and it essentially would ban bus lanes. Banning dedicated lanes, not just mixed use. It would not just ban bus lanes, dedicated lanes.
So I have one question. How much money is this guy getting from the car industry? Like he's got to be
the guy
getting
who wrote
paid.
the bill. His name's Senator Freeman. I think his name is Senator Aaron Freeman. If I'm trying to remember his first name, his last name's Freeman. But there's no way this guy is not deep in the auto lobby because they're really trying to like absolutely shut down Indigo BRT. And it's a solid project too. The reason why they're really proposing SB 52 right now is because they're working on the second section or the second line in the BRT network that would go right by the Indiana State Capitol. And the thing is that it wouldn't ban it in like other parts of Indiana, just
Right.
Indianapolis.
Which is so strange in particular. You know, like they just don't want it by the state capitol. I don't know. They're, can you give us a little bit of background on the banning of light rail in Indianapolis? Because that's wild.
Yeah, so I believe Indigo was looking into building a BRT network late in like the late 2000s, early 2010s. And they really were committed to building like an actual light rail network for Indianapolis. There's actually a lot of real like pro public transit sentiment in the Midwest, like the Rust Belt.
Mm.
Indiana's probably the one area that kind of lags behind in it compared to the other states. But yeah, I mean, the Indiana GOP really just came out there and said, yeah, we don't want light rail. And they essentially they just didn't want to spend public funds on it and they got it banned. So the state cannot set up or support any light rail systems in the state. If it was to be legally, if it was to be privately funded and run on entirely private land, then it would be illegal. But the state, specifically Indianapolis, cannot build light rail within the city limits.
That's so bananas.
It's insane. It's literally like the most insane like anti-transit laws out there. And this isn't like Alabama or anything. This is Indiana. This is right next to Chicago.
Right.
Like this is, I mean, obviously it's like, it's a very rural Midwestern state, but like, it's still very insane how like, because it's not like Wyoming where no one lives there. Like there's a few million people who live in the Indianapolis area alone.
Right.
It's insane seeing a metro area like this be literally so hamstrung that they're not even being allowed to build light rail. And maybe if SB 52 passes, which I hope to God it doesn't for the sake of Indianapolis, the banning of bus lanes. And this not only is bad just for Indiana, but this sets a horrible precedent for everywhere else.
Yeah, that's really, like really weird. Would the city be able to build it?
No,
just without state funding?
I don't believe the city would be allowed to build it because then they'd be messing with the traffic lanes. And since a lot of it a lot of it's planned to be run, I believe, on state highways. So it'd be the state DOT managing that.
Right.
Oh boy.
So this is coming from the state, the Senate.
Yes.
Yeah.
The state Senate at the moment.
That's so weird. It's the thing that really sucks. Like all this stuff is obviously going to be political, no matter what you're doing with your city or your state or your province. It's always going to be political, but it can be really frustrating when the people who are the experts on this stuff don't have a say other than voting for, like anybody else does, voting for, like the engineers, the traffic engineers, the city planners. They ultimately it's not up to them. They could have the best ideas in the world that's going to completely transform the city and make the city better for everybody.
Oh,
but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. So it's up to these people who are going to say, no dedicated bus lanes for you. It's going to fix traffic, but you know what? No.
One
just
more
ridiculous.
thing on this. So basically, the Indiana GOP decided to collect a bunch of signatures from local businesses in the area where the blue line is going to be built, basically proposing to them, hey guys, guess what? They're going to build the BRT right through here. Don't you want some sort of extra review done to it to make sure that it's built right and, doesn't affect your business? And a lot of the businesses were like, yeah, sure, that sounds reasonable to me. But then they realized that they signed an endorsement to SB 52 and they had been lied to, and now a lot of them
Wow.
are revoking their support of SB 52. They were like, hey, yeah, we know we signed that, but we did not see the whole bill in its entirety.
Yeah, they wanted a review. They wanted to, make sure that their business was going to be okay with these changes, not to say, "Hey, don't do these changes at all."
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's insane. Like, I can't believe, well, actually, I can believe that the GOP would do this, but it's insane that it's gotten this far. Like, this should
Yeah,
not be happening.
Would
that's
this
wild.
be one of the worst blunders when it comes to urbanism, like against urbanism when it comes to politics in a while? Because I think one of the worst I can think of is the sleight of hand that happened to Chicago with their parking back in whatever that was, 2009 or
This
something.
Mm,
this could be infinitely worse than that. I mean, that's bad. That's still very bad, and it's going to be affecting Chicago for decades. But this could be right up there. I think the difference is that Chicago's a bigger city, but the good thing is that I hope to God no other city decides to fall into the Chicago parking, deal where they basically privatized parking for the next, I think, what is it, like 80,
75.
yeah, 75 years. The thing is that if you privatize, or I mean, if you ban bus lanes, you have to go back into legislation to fix that, which can take years because light
hmm
rail still hasn't been unbanned in Indianapolis yet, even though there's been momentum to unban it. But then you have to go in and fix it legislatively, and then you have to redraft your whole proposal for the bus rapid transit network because then you have to get your lanes built in again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And you've eternally screwed over transit in the city for years, maybe even decades. This is, of course, unless Indiana wants to go out and build a heavy rail metro throughout the city, because then that would be. I always make this joke where I'm like, they banned light rail to build heavy rail metros throughout Indianapolis, and that they're
yeah,
actually doing praxis by doing this.
Yeah.
yeah. That'd be pretty funny.
Yeah, I like that
But
idea. They're just tying their hands.
it's just really it's just so tiring, and I can't imagine how bad it is for Indiana urbanists, at least down in Indianapolis, because Northwest Indiana's actually been getting a lot of improvements. Well, Indianapolis is just it's getting destroyed by its own government.
That's so sad. So
But keep
yeah,
up the
if
fight. You
you're,
can actually
yeah,
prevent SB 52 from getting signed. There's a whole bunch of petitions, signatures, stuff like that. We'll leave them in a description down below on YouTube, Spotify, listeners, anywhere else where you're listening. If you just look up like SB 52, there's a whole bunch of Indianapolis SB 52. There's a whole bunch of different links to organizations opposing this.
yeah, yeah. Thanks for bringing this up, Ethan. This is something that people can do something about, and it sucks if this goes through. That's a big step, a huge step backwards. That's like a leap backwards. So yeah, hopefully people in the area can do something to prevent that. We're gonna move on to some listener mail. Do you guys mind if I read this one?
Read
Read this
away,
one out.
please.
Read it.
After last week, you should definitely try to beat us on our reading comprehension. It wasn't great.
Yeah, no, it wasn't.
All right. Well, I'll read this email from our friend Aaron. He says, "Love your podcast. I've binged every episode, all 8. You mentioned how we should have transit education in our schools. I agree. Our local transit authority puts on week-long classes in the summer to encourage kids to get the knowledge on how to walk, bike, and ride transit. They also have a 7th grade bus program that aims to show kids how to get on the bus. That class is free across the district. All kids 18 and under can ride transit for free in our city, and I believe this is in let me just double check. This is in Washington or Whatcom. I don't know if that's the
That's the.
town name, or
It's near
is that the
Bellingham.
city?
It's all that kind of area
Okay.
in Washington.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Hmm.
Both my kids did the transit class and loved it. My son rides the bus multiple times a week to get to and from school now. Thanks for producing your podcast. You seem to have great chemistry and make an enjoyable listen. Aaron. Hate to disappoint Aaron. We actually hate each other, and before and after the show, we don't speak. We show up here and put on a good face, I guess.
Don't spoil it for them, Alex.
Do it for the
Hey,
children.
it's just
Smile. Come on.
yeah. It's just a peek behind the curtain, okay? Some behind the scenes for you folks there. Anyways, yeah, I think this is fantastic that this is being done in Washington State, and I hope that more places do things like that, because it's a no brainer, right? Like we teach, like what we were talking about last week. We teach people how to drive. We should teach them how to use transit, how to bike, how to walk safely. All of these things. Though I think walking safely needs few directions if you just create decent neighborhoods,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. That's what I was thinking. I'm like, a lot of these things should just be inherent to the environment. It should be inherently safe, and it should just come to you naturally how to use it safely. But
Yeah.
this is really cool. Like I never thought of this, like a bus program to teach kids how to use transit, because a lot of people are scared, and I think that gives to parents that ease of mind and feel more comfortable with their kids going off by themselves and using transit, because that's a big fear
Yeah.
for a lot of people. Like I think we talked
Yeah.
about a few weeks ago what happened here in Vancouver. I can't remember the name of the fella who, basically, there was like he was going to have his kids taken away from him from child services because he let his kids take the bus by themselves in Vancouver, and he fought and he won. So we would be far away from that situation, but when we actually teach kids on how to use it safely, which is it's fantastic. It's amazing. And I'm glad that
Yeah.
Aaron
That's very
here's his
exciting.
kids are using the bus multiple times a week to get to school. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's not hard, right? And it's also a lot safer than a lot of people would have you believe. Using transit, I mean, there's the driver there. You have to have a ticket to get on, right? There's cameras, right? They know, like, it's not like you're being sucked into a portal and who knows where you are between then and your
There's
destination,
just
right?
way too much fear mongering when it comes to transit, and it's
Yeah.
tiring.
Yep.
It's so tired.
I
Yeah.
had written this down a few months ago. So late last year, there was a lot of violence in Toronto on transit. And when I say a lot, there was like 3 different instances that became high profile cases in the news in Toronto on transit. Somebody got stabbed or whatever. And most of the time, same thing in here in Vancouver. There was one stabbing last year that I remember seeing. It's often like targeted violence. It's some kind of gang violence or something. It's rarely is it a random attack. And it's something that always gets ignored is like the violence that happens on our streets with cars. How many people die every year because of cars, inside of cars,
Every
outside of
day.
cars, every day? Was it
Yeah.
like over 40,000 a year in the United States? And it's just this drip that happens every couple days.
And that's not targeted.
No, exactly.
No.
That's not like that's just what happens, and we seem to just accept
Yeah.
it. We seem to just be
Yeah, it's
okay
just
with
acceptable losses, guys. We don't have to worry
Yeah.
about that. But God forbid someone gets into a fist fight on a train at 2 a.m.
Yeah. It
Now
doesn't
transit's
have to
all
be that way.
unsafe.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
like this. We have other options, safer options. And transit
Yeah.
is one of those.
Yeah. I will say I have felt unsafe on transit one time. One time ever. And that was when I was the only person on the train car, and it was like 11:30, 12 at night, and I was sitting there on my way home from work, and somebody else gets on the train, and he was super high on all sorts of stuff probably, and he gets on the train and he's acting weird, and I'm feeling real uncomfortable, and he says to me, he's like, "I don't want your stuff, man. I don't want your stuff." And then he walked away, and then I was like, okay, it's like he could obviously see I was uncomfortable. But yeah, that's the worst experience I've ever had.
Just
And then
to let people know, if you do feel unsafe in a train car, you can exit it at the next station, or even if there are cars in between. I mean, if it's really too an unsafe, standard one, follow transit policies and what they recommend. But Yeah, just you
Yeah.
can
Move
cars
to the front of the
Mhm.
train.
Yeah.
If there's a driver on the train, move to the front of the train. That's where most people hang out when it's late. But yeah, like it really, especially if you're on the bus, like it's really really not that bad, and you're safer than when you're driving. You
Oh
know,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. So I think it's great that that they're doing this in Whatcom County, and I also I hope that spreads. I also really like that it's free for anybody under 18.
Yeah.
I think that's
yeah.
fantastic
That
because that's like if you don't have a driver's license, are you just going to be trapped?
yes. I think in a lot of cases that's
Right?
the problem we're seeing, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, and what's really cool about that too is in places where they implement free transit for people under a certain age, whatever it is, if it could be 18, 16, 12, doesn't matter. They always see adult ridership go up as soon as they implement that. It's because
Hmm.
the parents look at it, they're like, well, it's just paying one fare. I don't have to worry about my child going, so I can go with them.
Hmm.
hmm
And it's not an added expense, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great. It's great. So thanks for emailing us, Aaron, and telling us a bit about where you live and the good urbanism stuff happening there, the progress that's happening there, and the programs that you've got, and hopefully we can implement elsewhere.
I've got
We've
one
got a
question though.
comment. Oh
Is
yeah,
it
you've
is
got a
it
question.
Bellingham or is it Bellingham?
I think it's Bellingham.
Bellingham. I had it
I
wrong.
think it's Bellingham, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken.
Yeah,
I've been
I find
following too much
I
UK soccer stuff.
Bellingham.
yeah, I feel like in the UK it'd be Bellingham.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe Aaron right back into us. Let us know how to say it. But yeah, who's got this next
Yeah,
comment?
I can read this one, even though I got this cold thing going on. Bear with me. This is from Hall's Emporium, the legendary Jen Hall, one of our biggest fans, one of the
Fan of the
biggest,
show.
perhaps the biggest, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe.
But she goes to say, I keep thinking about traveling to places in the world we see celebrated in our favorite urbanism YouTube videos. The Netherlands, Montreal, and New York City are top of my list. Where would you all like to visit that you have not been to yet? That's a great question. Who wants to start? I'm ready to go. I got one on the tip
I'm ready
of my
to go
tongue.
too.
So you've already
Okay, I need time to think.
you've already named the one that I have not been to yet that I really want to visit, and that's Montreal. I've been wanting to go to Montreal for a very long time. I've been through Montreal as a child. We passed through it a couple times. We'd always go to the East Coast in the summer on vacation, but I haven't actually been there, and I definitely haven't been there with an urbanist lens. So I've been to many, like I've been to the Netherlands. The last time I was there was like 7 years ago, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and had an amazing time. I rode a bike, but I still didn't see it through that urbanist lens. And I'm actually going this summer. So I'm really looking forward to seeing places I've already been to, but with a different perspective, like I did with New York City last summer, which was amazing. So yeah, Montreal's the top of my list for sure.
Ethan?
So, top of my list, I'm going to have to put down Mexico City. That is, like, it is the biggest city in North America. It is super exciting when it comes to transit and cycling infrastructure. It really has kind of gone, the whole mixed use, dense, walkable urbanism route. And it's really just a very exciting city on the continent that I don't think gets really enough respect in terms of the urbanist talk. Like, it gets some, but, a lot of the Mexican cities are doing a lot of good. And yet they just haven't seen that recognition. Guadalajara is another great one as well, Monterrey. But Mexico City is probably top of my list when it comes to cities that I want to see, because also I want to see trolleybus BRT.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it gets ignored. I think language barrier might be a part of that.
Yeah.
I've ignored it in my own mind. Like I've recently been more thinking about Mexico as a place to visit. I've never been there in any respect, but actually going there for the purpose of seeing the urbanism would be really cool.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, I think we might have to do some radio-free urbanism episodes in Mexico.
Yes. From Cabo, here we are.
Hi, everybody. We're in Cancun looking at the urbanism of this resort.
Oh, my gosh. Cancun, I just remembering it with an urbanist relate.
Yeah. They got
Cancun is like the least urbanist. That's like Las Vegas level. Yeah.
Look, it's walkable. They got neighborhood electric vehicles. It's perfect.
Look, this little golf cart will take me around the course. Yeah, I actually, you know what? I'm gonna I'm still kind of thinking where I want to go. So while I do that, I'm going to stall by saying that any Latin American place would actually be pretty interesting. I have a couple friends who just got back from a huge trip around South America. They were there for 3 months, and while they were there, they sent me tons of footage of buses and bus lanes and BRTs and even a lot of cycling, walkable streets. And yeah, I think that is often inaccessible to us because of the language barrier. So maybe on this video, on this YouTube video, or if you're listening in a podcast app, you can email us at radiofreeurbanism@gmail.com. But write into us. Let us know if there are any maybe Spanish language urbanist channels or French language urbanist channels. That's been something I've been wanting to check out for a little bit. If there's anything like that, or if this is just like an English speaker's problem that we can't seem to design our cities well,
It's the Anglo
that would
issue.
be fantastic. Yeah, yeah. It's like we've got this big problem, but yeah, I'd like to see what maybe some other places are doing. But you know what?
What's your answer? Come on.
I might.
Come on.
Okay, here's the thing. Part of me wants to say Montreal, but I'm going there in 2 weeks. So I'm actually like, I'm about to see it. So I'm like, okay, I want to see Oulu.
Oh,
yeah.
the Finnish city.
Finland.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That'd be cool.
yeah. That's where I want to go. I want to see what they're doing there, especially from the standpoint of a winter cycling city. I think Calgary would have to do winter cycling different than they do it there because we get different weather patterns and different types of snowfall than they do. But I think there's just so much to learn from how they pull that off. I always think back to the video that Tom from Shifter did with the Finnish guy on their bike ability there. So yeah, we'll go with Oulu or Oulu, Finland.
However you pronounce it. That's cool.
My pick.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that place.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for the comment,
Yeah.
Jen. Again, if you have questions, comments, concerns, if you're wondering about any of our health, you can email in at radiofreeurbanism@gmail.com or leave a comment on the YouTube video. Remember, if you're watching on YouTube, you get to see all the cool, interesting stuff that we might share on the screen as well, which is fun. But as we wrap up here, we've got a Wug Mug, a little what grinds my gears, and I'm bringing that today, and that is cars are loud, super loud. I was out this past week walking down the street and headed to my favorite restaurant around the bend when cars are just driving past, and it's a pretty, like, it's a well-treed street. It's not like a crazy highway. It's not even a Strode. It's residential, kind of collector street. And I just noticed how brutally loud it was. My sister and I had our other sister on speakerphone, and we were trying to have a nice conversation. And when you're on like a nice, walkable, quiet street, you realize like just how pleasant everything is when you don't have cars flying by you. Yesterday, I was walking to choir, or 2 days ago, I was walking to choir, and I had my earbuds in, and I had, every time I got close to a busy road, I had to turn the volume all the way up because I couldn't hear it. And I just think, I'm like, I want to listen to this, but I got to turn the volume all the way up. That's bad for my ears, right? But even if I wasn't listening to music or podcasts or whatever, just the sound of the cars is bad for my ears. You don't need that competition. And so I think that's something that we don't talk about enough. And I wanted to bring that up as something that really grinds my gears.
I like the way you brought it too. You're not getting all crazy like I do. But yes,
Yeah,
it's
like
something that annoys me as well. It's something that I think about often because as much as, hey, I live in a very walkable place, Vancouver is still dominated by cars. Over 50% of the modal share is still cars. There's a lot of cars here. Not only that, there's a lot of people with money. And what comes with money and cars usually is a bigger car, and it just happens to be much louder. If you want to know what the quintessential car in Vancouver is. It might just be the G-Wagon or a Land Rover or a Porsche, the big SUVs.
Yeah.
What do they all have in common? A V8 engine. And what does a V8 engine do? It makes a lot of noise. They're loud.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think, oh, it'd be the sound of supercars. I also hear those on occasion, but the sound I always recognize outside my window is the sound of a roaring V8 engine blasting through this intersection that's near my place. And it's just so loud. But again, I think the more importantly than just being in your own home and hearing sound is being out on the street and trying to just walk around and talk to people. And again, listening to things in your earphones, it just sucks how loud it can be. And
I've lived in both the lands of modifying the shit out of your car and truck, and I mean, I lived in Florida, so I'm pretty well aware of the most annoying sound in the world, which is a lifted pickup without any, that's basically just tuned to sound way louder than it actually is. And even when I was living in Florida, I lived in a semi-walkable neighborhood. Definitely narrow streets. I think the widest street in the city was only like 2 lanes, other than like the state highway that kind of ran right by it. But I mean, you'd still get people flying down at 40 miles an hour in like a lifted F-150, and it has the most annoying like 120 decibel engine sound on this earth, and it's not even going fast. Like I thought like the appeal of cars were that they go fast when they make loud noises, not that they're like dragging slow as hell making all this noise. It's like, what's the point? Like I just don't get it. But even normal cars are still loud. Once they get up to speed, the tire noise from roads is just And another thing that a lot of people don't realize too is that this has health effects. Like this will spike your cortisol in your blood. You will feel stressed from loud noises, even if you don't feel stressed from it. And that does have health impacts over time.
Yeah, I've had arguments about this topic with people. Like I remember seeing some video online and somebody was honking a lot. You hear all the time, somebody's anger honking at somebody on the streets. It happens every day, all the time. And somebody had brought up the health effects, and this other person like vehemently just completely shut it down. It's like, no, like this is not a thing. It's like, how, like the data is in. This isn't like a debate. Sound affects people's health. Like we know that sleep is incredibly important. It's very complicated, but not getting enough of it is going to be bad for your health. And noise is definitely a problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something we have to take into consideration. I think it overlays the whole problem with car dependency. And again, it's like we talked about last week when I went off about idling, is that this is an externality that is imposed on society by people who are driving cars, that they are less inclined to have to deal with that. So if I'm riding my bike or I'm walking or whatever on the streets, I'm imposed to that noise, when someone in a car increasingly is more shielded from the noise that they're creating.
Yeah, they have noise canceling. Yeah. They have Bose noise canceling systems in cars to make it a more pleasant ride. But everybody outside still has to deal with that.
And as cars get heavier with EVs and they get bigger and heavier, it gets even louder, especially when it's wet and rainy. Bigger tires, heavier cars make a ton of noise, including EVs. A lot of people say they're silent. They are absolutely not silent.
Most road noise comes from the tires.
Exactly.
Most people don't know that. They think it's engine noise.
No, as soon as you're going above 30K, it starts to get louder and louder. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. I mean, and it's been said a million times before that cities aren't loud, cars are loud, right? You can go to a busy mall, go to a busy shopping mall and walk around inside and just feel how loud you're talking to the person beside you. Just like pay attention to how loud you're talking to the person beside you, and then go outside and walk down your nearest Strode. Just go outside and walk down your nearest Strode, and then see how much louder you have to talk. Just to have a conversation. It's not about people. It's not about too many people. It's about too many cars. That's the problem.
Mm-hmm. In fact, I think having a lot of people can actually be somewhat calming. Like if you're in a place where it's, there could be a ton of people, but just the sound of people chatting and just whatever you want to call it, enjoying themselves is actually pretty pleasant. I think.
The Jane Jacobs Eyes on the Streets bells are going ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That's how you make pleasant spaces. But alas, thank you. Thanks, guys, for your stories, for your thoughts, for your emails. Again, we'll say if you want to write into us, radiofreeurbanism@gmail.com, or leave us a YouTube comment. We read those as well. A YouTube comment. Thanks, everybody. And with that, Ethan, where can we find you?
People, you can find me at Climate and Transit on everything except for Twitter. That is just at Climate Transit. And I just had a new video come out on Wednesday about the Northwest Extension in Arizona.
Go watch it.
Nice. And Nick?
Oh, yeah. You can find me at Nick Laporte or Nick the Door on other socials.
Fantastic. And you can find me at Humane Cities on Instagram and YouTube. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. And until next week, fare thee well.
Peace.